New Testament manuscript images. This podcast is at the Greek level. It requires no knowledge of Accordance Bible software, but a working knowledge of Greek and an interest in ancient manuscripts would be helpful. Last year, Accordance released John Trevor's photographs of the Dead Sea Scrolls. Though the manuscripts only covered 3 books, Isaiah, Daniel, and the Pesher and Habakkuk, they were a big hit, and we New Testament scholars were rightfully envious. Our booth at SBL was filled with Greek scholars saying, "Why can't we have something like this for our manuscripts?" Well, someone heard our cry. The Center for the Study of New Testament Manuscripts and Accordance Bible Software have partnered together to offer the New Testament Manuscript Images DVD. These are photographs of 5 different New Testament codices, each in its own reference tool module, a total of 1,300 high-resolution digital images of the Greek New Testament. Really into Greek text criticism? Want your students to learn to be able to read ancient Greek as it was actually written thousands of years ago? Now Accordance has everything we need. Here are copies of the codices Alexandrinus and 2882 side by side, with the Nestle Allen eclectic text below and the comprehensive Center for New Testament Textual Studies apparatus underneath it. All of these modules are currently available in Accordance. This screenshot clearly shows the difference between the uncial script on the left, it's all written in capital letters, the minuscule script on the right, all lowercase letters, and the modern mixed Greek font of the Nestle Allen underneath. So what exactly does this collection include? Digitized photos of facsimiles of 5 different ancient Greek codices. The first of them, Codex Sinaiticus, is the oldest complete manuscript of the Greek New Testament, discovered in 1844 by Tischendorf at the convent of St. Catherine on Mount Sinai. The monks there presented the manuscript as a gift to the Tsar of Russia in 1859. These digitized photographs are of a 1911 facsimile printed from the photographs of the manuscript taken in 1908 in St. Petersburg, Russia. The facsimile itself now resides in the British Library in London. These kinds of details are available in the collection for each of these codices, though we will omit them for the other 4 in this collection. They include Codex Alexandrinus, a 5th century Greek manuscript missing most of Matthew and 2 Corinthians, as well as several chapters of the 4th Gospel. In addition, Codex Vaticanus, an early 4th century manuscript that is missing Hebrews, the pastoral epistles, and Revelation, as well as the longer ending of Mark and the story of the adulteress in John. This collection also includes 2 manuscripts held in American collections, Codex Washingtonensis, a late 4th, early 5th century copy of the 4 Gospels held by the Smithsonian Institute, and Codex 2882, a 10th century copy of the Gospel of Luke held by the Center for the Study of New Testament Manuscripts. Here's a table summarizing each manuscript, together with its date, material, font, location, and text. Vellum is leather, and you'll notice that only the 10th century manuscript uses a minuscule script instead of the older uncial style. This screenshot shows Nestle Allen 27 at the upper left, a modern Greek New Testament. Just beneath it are 2 instances of our tagged Vaticanus manuscript, both using the uncial font Sylvanus. In the one with the green letters, I set the text display to eliminate the spaces between words, as is the case with the Greek in the real Vaticanus manuscript. The thumbnail of the manuscript page is shown in the bottom row on the left, and an enlargement of that image in the column on the right. Now, if you're not used to reading ancient Greek, and there are probably only 3 of you in the world watching this podcast who are, it may take you a while to make out the individual words. Here's Geneseos, as it appears in each resource, and the instant details box. Here's an image of the beginning of the infancy narrative in Luke 2:1 from Codex 2882, a good example of a minuscule Greek font. The translation? A decree of Caesar Augustus to register all the inhabitants of the world. Here's a modern Greek font to help us sort out the words, and word dividers to make it even easier. Add a photo of the Grotto of the Nativity from our Photo Guide 3, and we'll have the nicest Christmas card any Greek scholar could wish for. Now, let's see these images for ourselves in Accordance. In order to conserve our time together today, I've set up a number of, well, now pre-configured workspaces. I started with the Greek New Testament here, and then basically added a number of other tagged Greek New Testaments. In fact, one for each one of the images that we have. In addition to that, I've added this row of images at the bottom, in this case, by calling them up as reference tools. You'll see here, I have a folder called Greek New Testament Images, and I placed each of these images in order. So that except for Nestle Aland 27 and the Codex 2882, I have Alexandrinus in the second column, I have Sinaiticus in the third column, Vaticanus in the fourth column, and Washingtonensis in the fifth column. And you'll notice that these scroll very nicely together. I just click on the scroll bar a couple of times and you can see that the manuscripts move as the scriptures move. Let's go back to the top of Luke 1. We'll go to Alexandrinus. I'm going to type Command T. Some of you have probably wondered what this hide spaces option is for the text settings. The reason is so that you can make it look much more like the original manuscript, which, of course, had no spaces. And you can see now that none of the words have spaces in between them. That makes it look much more like these original manuscript images. Now, if we look at the manuscript images themselves, there are a couple of things I want to point out. First is, they are all different. If you use the hypertext link over top of it, you will notice that you have a reading of that particular section of the manuscript. And of course, you can set that, again using Command T, and you can pick whatever text that you would like. I have the ESV translation, but of course you can also pick the Greek New Testament. Anyway, if you have a single hypertext link, it indicates that the manuscript has a single column. A double hypertext link, that there are 2 columns, 4 columns, 3 columns, and so on. However, Sinaiticus has a little surprise for us, and that is that the manuscript reference itself is hypertext length. That's because one of our developers decided it'd be nice if at least one of these manuscripts linked to the original manuscript, which in this case is in the British Museum in London. You'll notice that if I do this, I can actually zoom in and zoom around on the manuscript itself, which, by the way, is just cool. If I go back to Accordance, you'll notice that I can call up any one of these images simply by clicking on it. And now I have the image on this side of the page. The next workspace I have to show you has to do with resolving the textual question of whether John 7:53 and following, the story of the adulteress, belongs in John or not. As you can see in this workspace, I've set up the ESV on the left, Nestle Aland on the right, and just below that, this tagged manuscript, Vaticanus. To my right, I have already selected the particular folio of the manuscript that deals with this particular issue. Notice this line in Vaticanus right here. Notice that it ends with Aigeiretai. In the same way, this line on Vaticanus right here ends with Aigeiretai. Now, when one reads in a textual apparatus that a manuscript is missing a certain part, sometimes we're not exactly sure what it means. Does it mean that that particular page has been torn away or that the bottom of a column is missing? Well, as you can see in this particular manuscript, there is no room for verses 753 and following. Vaticanus goes directly from 753, ending in this word right here. And notice that the words that follow it, which, by the way, both ESV and Nestle Aland enclose in double brackets. Notice that the next line should begin with Kai if we keep this. And again, there is no Kai here at all. Instead, if we scroll all the way to the end of this passage that I've set up, it begins with Palin. And that is exactly the word that we have here. What is it? It is the first word in John 8:12. That means that in Vaticanus, not only is the pericope actually missing, but the fact is there's no room for it on the manuscript. It's very obvious that this is not a scribal error. In fact, the scribe who wrote this manuscript, he was copying from a manuscript that did not have that particular pericope in it. This last workspace takes a look at the shorter ending of Mark. You can notice once again I have the ESV set up here, the Greek New Testament set up here, Codex Sinaiticus in the tag text here, as well as the images of Sinaiticus, or at least the thumbnails in the row below. And I've set up rows like this because I found that when we're examining single text, it makes it much easier to compare different versions. And on my upper right, I actually have magnified this section, which is the ending of Mark for Sinaiticus. If you look closely, you may be able to see it on the thumbnail down here. We're actually in the second column, about what looks like a paragraph down. And I have the CNTTS apparatus open in a different zone in the bottom. What are we looking for? Well, we're looking for the last words of Mark, and according to Sinaiticus, it happens to be here, Ephubantu gar. And by the way, that is, of course, the last words in Mark 16:8 in Nestle Aland. You'll notice here in the manuscript we have the same thing written out just a little bit more clearly, Ephubantu gar. And when we take a look in the textual apparatus, what it tells us is this, that this manuscript, which happens to be Codex Sinaiticus, is one of the manuscripts in which this particular text is missing, and that this happens to be the base reading in Nestle Aland, here. In other words, all these pieces of evidence corroborate each other. What we have is a manuscript here that very obviously ends at 16:8. And by the way, if I scroll down on the enlargement of the manuscript, you can see very clearly that this copyist has left this section of the column blank. If we go back up to the top section of the column and we move over to the next column, you can see here that we have the beginning of the Gospel of Luke. These are just some of the things that we can use these images of manuscripts for. Most of us can never dream of owning so much as a fragment of one of these manuscripts, but thanks to Accordance, we can own this entire set of images for just $179. I don't know about you, but there's something about using cutting-edge technology to read these ancient texts that just thrills my soul. And yes, for those of you about to ask, you'll be able to display these images with our new app on your iPhone or your iPad. Stay tuned for more details. It's a great time to be in biblical studies. These manuscripts were licensed to us by the Center for the Study of New Testament Manuscripts, a nonprofit organization located in Dallas, Texas. Their mission is to make digital photographs of extant Greek New Testament manuscripts so that such images can be preserved, duplicated without deterioration, and accessed by scholars doing textual research. Could we encourage you to consider a tax-deductible donation to them this Christmas season? Their webpage is located at www.csntm.org, or you can call them directly at 972-941-4521. These Greek New Testament manuscript images are just another example of our commitment here at Accordance to provide our users with the very best resources available in the world for Bible study and for biblical research. At this season of celebration, we'd like to thank you for your ongoing support and your continued patronage. It's a pleasure to serve users like you. This has been Dr. J for Accordance Bible Software. Thank you for watching this episode of Lighting the Lamp.